Hello, I'm Deborah at Daniel Smith, and today I'm talking with artist Steve Whitney. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Deborah.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today about Daniel Smith's water-soluble oils. Can you tell us a bit about your background as an artist?
Well, I started dabbling in art when I was a kid, and I didn't start painting seriously until about 1993. But I've painted seriously ever since. I started in watercolor like a lot of people do, and then about 2000 I switched to oil, which I've been painting almost exclusively since then.
What's been your past experience with painting with water-soluble oils?
Well, not that great. When I first started painting in oils back in 2000, I was required to use water-soluble oils because it was a class and she didn't want terps in class. And they worked okay, but I didn't really like them very much. They were kind of sticky, and they also didn't seem to have the pigment strength that traditional oils had. So I tried 3 different brands, and one of them was like painting with bubble gum, and none of them had that sort of almost sensuous, rich texture that you come to associate with oils. And it's one of the reasons I paint with oils, because I'm addicted to it. And so I painted with traditional oils ever since.
How does that compare with your experience of painting with our Daniel Smith water-soluble oils?
Completely different. I really like the Daniel Smith water-soluble oils. Before their debut, I was asked to try them out and see how I liked them. I was a little hesitant because my previous experience had been so unfortunate that I was maybe worried that I wouldn't like these either, but I needn't have worried. I took them home, I laid them out on my palette, I started painting, and I produced this painting. And the experience was completely positive. I mean, really, I have nothing bad to say about it. When you clean your brushes, they clean off easily, even though they're oil paint. In fact, I hold a damp cloth in my hand that I've wrung out, and I often wipe my brush like that before I even stick it in, or sometimes I just put it directly in another color of paint. And it works beautifully, and the texture is excellent.
Very creamy.
Very creamy, yes, yes. And I've had friends try them, and they've been very pleased. So it's totally different. I think Daniel Smith has come up with a really good formulation for water-soluble oils.
And it's great that you're not exposed to the hazardous volatile fumes from turpentine and mineral spirits.
Oh, that's absolutely true. One of the big problems when you're cleaning your brushes with traditional oil is you either have to have your mineral spirit can open, which is not good, or you have to keep taking the lid on and off to clean your brushes, which is a nuisance. But when you're dealing with these water-soluble oils, you just have a can of oil or a can of water sitting there. And it's no different than if you were painting with watercolor and cleaning your brushes in water. And
you don't have the disposal issues either.
No, you don't.
Right.
It's you know, you've got basically wet cloths or wet towels, and you can throw them away, and the water is got some pigment in it, but it's basically just some oil and pigment and water. There's nothing toxic in the mix at all.
Right. So, and how is it with traveling? Do you think it's good for traveling?
Well, obviously it's much better because you can't travel, you can't fly, let us say, with and carry terps or even odorless mineral spirits. And that means when you get someplace, you have to say you're in Spain and don't speak Spanish, and suddenly you have to find out where you're going to buy some terps. Well, good luck.
You can say agua.
Yeah, that's right. Even I know agua.
That's very good. So what are the advantages for artists to paint with the Daniel Smith water-soluble oils, and why do you recommend them?
Well, there's a lot of advantages. I'll start with the 2 that are most important to me. One is during the winter time when I've got my studio all closed up, I'd rather not be using mineral spirits. I've got a fan, but I still would rather not be doing that. And this past winter, for example, I just cleaned my brushes with safflower oil. Well, this is a much better solution. I mean, you just have a can of water sitting there, they clean easily, you don't have to deal with anything else but, you know, the water you're using to clean your brushes. The second thing is that I do a lot of plein air painting, and normally you have to carry around this little tin of mineral spirits, and you don't want to spill in the car, and it's a kind of just a pain in the neck. It's much easier to carry around water. In fact, I just carry around my water bottle and use part of it to paint with. So those are the two big things for me. And then a third thing is I teach oil painting, and I teach oil painting without the use of mineral spirits, mainly so that the class isn't full of, you know, mineral spirits that some people are extremely sensitive to and none of us should be exposed to very long. But it's much easier if students could just use the water-soluble oils. And the thing here is that I did not recommend them before because I didn't like any of them. But I'd have no problem recommending the Daniel Smith water-soluble oils to any students who want to use them.
That's a great point, because a lot of schools nowadays don't even teach oil painting any longer because of the exposure to the hazardous fumes from mineral spirits and from turpentines. I've also heard that other artists that who paint with children in the studio, that's an issue. And anybody who has any health issues themselves, that being able to go back and return to oil painting is really nice.
I have a couple of friends who quit oil painting because they were hypersensitive to mineral spirits, and they now have the option of returning. And you know, if you have your studio in your home, or if you're trying to paint and watch kids at the same time, you don't want mineral spirits in that environment. I mean, I have two granddaughters, and they're not with me when I'm painting, but they like to come into the studio and see what Grandpa's doing. Well, I would just as soon the studio was not full of fumes when they come in.
That's very smart.
So, you know, it's, and it, you know, if you've got a studio in your house, you just don't want to deal with it.
Right.
And there are other ways of dealing with it, but none are as easy as this. You know, to just be able to use water to, you know, clean your brushes and dilute your paint is pretty amazing. And
still have all the wonderful experience of painting with oils.
Exactly. I can honestly say I don't feel there is any compromise in handling or quality with these paints, and I can't say that about other brands I've used.
So in summary, Steve, what would you like to say about them?
The main thing I'd like to say is that if you're an artist, whether a beginner or an experienced painter, who has avoided oils because you're worried about mineral spirits, you don't need to worry anymore, because the Daniel Smith water-soluble oil paints provide the same experience, the same brushability, the same rich color, the same luscious feel, the same drying times, very nearly, as traditional oils.
And they actually have that beautiful linseed oil scent too.
Yes, they do. They smell like oil paint because they are oil paint. They're not water-based oil paints. They're oil paints that happen to be soluble in water. And that's because of the Daniel Smith water-soluble linseed oil, which has been molecularly manipulated so that basically it forms an emulsion with the oil rather than separating out. And so you can use the water, and then when the water evaporates, you have an oil painting. Not a water-soluble oil painting, an oil painting. It's structurally, chemically, physically the same as an oil painting made with traditional oils. But you don't have to be exposed to toxic fumes.
That is wonderful, to not have to be exposed to all those toxic fumes. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing with us your experiences with painting with our Daniel Smith water-soluble oil paints.
You're welcome.